right, when I
So
clap. And when I clap, though, then we will be, right?
now yeah, when you clap, you're officially going on the air, but now you're being recorded. Okay,
Okay.
Twitch has accepted the stream. YouTube has accepted the stream. Waiting for Facebook. Facebook has accepted the stream. Now all you have to do is clap your hands and and start your timer and you're on the air and I want everyone to have a good show, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded and produced by Think Twice Radio and our friend Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. And thanks to WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative radio station coming out of Buff State. Thank you to our friends in Buff State. And thankfulness makes me think of our Indigenous friends, and the way they open every gathering is with Thanksgiving, that says how we thank our Mother Earth, who provided everything we need for life in this creation, for the living waters in all their forms and fashions that life depends on, for all the creatures of all kinds, for all the plants and different landforms and the sun and the moon and the stars, and the love that motivates it all, and all the people who are here, and our creator who created it all, and with that love that motivates. So then they would say Nyahweh, and then they would ask people to say Nyo.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you. So I'm very honored to be here. I'm Victory Ross, the board chair for the Western New York Peace Center, and we have co-hosting with our very own executive director, Deidra EmEl. Hi, Deidra.
Hey, peace and love. Peace and love. Thank you all for being on the show.
Well, we're grateful to have this show. And we're especially grateful to our courageous, wonderful guests on the show. And I'll go around the counterclockwise from where I see. We have Brandon Hawkins. Hi, Brandon.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. So glad to see you here. And Erica Seymour. Erica.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having us.
Oh, we're so grateful to have you here. And KateLynn Barlow.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Oh, please. No, we're grateful to have you. And we want to get right to it because I know that you can't stay on very long. Turns out there's been a sort of a schedule need on your all's side. So we're just glad you managed to come anyway. And I want to say these three courageous people have brought a suit against the Buffalo Police Department for racism in the police department, for incidents that have been going on for a prolonged period without being rectified, and we're just so appreciative of your courage. And so I want to ask you just to briefly tell what happened, if you would. And so maybe Brandon, we're doing a go round. We can take different pieces. Do you want to start?
Okay, you want to start it off?
Yeah. So on May 2nd, because I was actually present for the initial conversation.
Mm-hmm.
On May 2nd, another officer and we were watching a video of two white officers racially profiling another uniformed Black officer. I'm not sure where it was, but it was somewhere outside of Buffalo. And Captain Beyer had walked into the office and asked what we were looking at. And we showed her the video. She said she could see both sides. We said there aren't two sides. This is just racism.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when she said that we should try to understand why people are racist. And that if a white person was robbed by a Black person, that would be pretty much justify that white person being racist. And then she said that in her words, she said, as a white woman, We believe that Black men cheat more than white men and that it's a running joke in the police department and everyone knows it. Every Black officer she knows has cheated on their significant other. Black people commit more violent crime than white people, which this was 12 days before the Tops shooting.
Mm.
And she said that white officers get PTSD from working on the east side because of the violent crime. So when me and the other officer, we were like, well, what about the Black officers that work in those same districts? She said, oh, they usually grow up in those areas. She said she'd be suspicious if she saw a Black man walking in her neighborhood because there's no Black people where she lives. And she lives in Wheatfield, New York. So these were all, and no one even asked her opinion for all of that stuff. She just said it voluntarily,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very uncomfortable. So then we ended up
Too
filing
comfortable.
right. We ended up filing an internal affairs complaint. We all wrote statements up. We informed Brandon and Erica of what was said. We were called to give statements, gave our statements. I didn't even give my statement until July. And then after that, in September, she felt comfortable enough because nothing happened after the first incident, which she told us nothing was going to happen to her and that she's not worried about it, which nothing happened to her. The second incident on September 29th, where she came into the office reading an email that had the N-word in it twice. Once I asked her to censor herself, she turned around and laughed and said, oh, I'm just reading the email. So at that point, that's when Brandon, Erica, and I were like, well, something has to be done because clearly she's taking us as a joke. So we went down to our union. They told us to just go to the EEOC, which we did. And still nothing was done after the second incident either, until a week after we brought our lawsuit forward, which we didn't even want to bring the lawsuit forward. We tried to allow our job to do their job, and they failed us. So they left us no other choice.
So I want to say, I'm sorry that I didn't say this right off the bat, that both KateLynn and Brandon, as Buffalo police officers, and Erica, that you as a mental health professional are all part of the behavioral health team, behavioral health unit, the behavioral health team of the Buffalo Police Department, which this all happened in that unit,
Yes.
which makes it all the more disturbing and ridiculous, honestly, because there's a certain level of being able to help deal with difficult conversations that one needs for doing that kind of work. So I'm very aware of the fact that you all can't stay on that long. So what I'd love to do is for us to move into the part. One of the things that is so big is, what do you see? And this is what Deidra was saying, most important. What do you all see as things that need to happen in the Buffalo Police Department, the changes that you need to see? And I would say again, well, whoever wants to start, and then we can just each of you take a turn.
I would say more of a safe space for officers of color to come forward with experiences like this, because officers of color have come to us giving us their support, but stating that them seeing what the department is doing to us, it discourages them from coming forward with their own experiences. And, just accountability at the fact that they allowed this to happen. We know it, but for whatever reason, they're trying to make us feel like we're wrong for doing what we're doing or for bringing attention to it. Accountability, some sort of safe space, some sort of diversity training. I can't recall taking any type of diversity training in the department, let alone since being in the mental health unit, bias training, sensitivity training, whatever the case may be. But this has been going on for too long, and it's going to continue to go on for as long as it's allowed. And if they're showing that they're allowing it, how they're treating, us, and how they're coddling Amber, all it does is just make other white officers feel comfortable to say these things and do these things because they see and they feel that they're invincible.
Absolutely. And I think something that can immediately be done is that Amber Buyer can lose her job. I think that um, Amber doesn't seem to be fit in order to um, complete like the daily tasks and duties of her position that she has. Just being a person in power and having so much impact and interaction with the community of color, and to have these stereotypes and these biases that she has and felt comfortable, like Kate said, to say it in front of a team of majority Black people just shows that there's lacking somewhere some type of cultural sensitivity, just even awareness, because she couldn't even, read the room when she said these things to Black officers. So I think it's important that she learns the lesson, and it needs to be a hard lesson.
And just to build off everything that they're saying, I think one of the biggest things is it should be transparency. When stuff like this comes out, the public should know immediately. If we never would have been brave enough to come forward, you would have never heard this story. And like I said before, we are so desensitized to racism. And like I said, I've on this job for 16 years, so many racist things that have been said to me that I kind of just brushed off because I'm just supposed to move forward, keep going. And that's not right. So it needs to be some big transparency in this department.
Wow, very well said. From everyone, very well said. Go ahead, Vicky.
No, I want to hear from you, and also, also whenever what you think about changes in the department, which we can get some of that later, but also about the whistleblower, the Carriel Horn and the Western New York Peace Center whistleblower fund.
Well, I wanted to know when I looked up, just some information about your case, and have you been in touch with there was another article in the Buffalo News last year that discussed, about, racial slurs being used within the East Side Black community, from police officers and so on. And there was a lawsuit pending, I believe, with 5 retired officers. Are you in contact with those officers? Are you trying to come together maybe for a larger lawsuit or to do something on a larger scale?
No, so the lawsuit I believe the lawsuit I believe you're talking about, the retired officers were the ones using the racial slurs.
Yeah, they were using the racial slurs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were saying sometimes they would combat what the citizens would say to them, was saying the N-word back to them.
Oh, I see.
That's what the article was about. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's nothing that we want to be a part of.
Right. Yeah, from my understanding, I thought it was the other way around, that other officers have complained.
Oh no, it was the officers using the.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I'm quoting Mayor Brown right, he said in the article that that's his problem, and that's not the culture in the Buffalo Police Department. When he was saying about that supervisor who said he uses the N-word, he said that's his problem.
So I think that also that was the suit that was started by Black Love Resisting the Rest, and we were tangentially involved in that. That was about the checkpoints, and so in some of their discovery about the checkpoints and whether those were racially motivated. So I mean, there's that. There's the Tinted Glass and the Fair Fines and Fees Coalition really helped, and actually Buffalo News helped to help people realize how much how many fines and fees are going, and that back to checkpoints. It's all to the Black and brown neighborhoods, or Black and brown and indigenous drivers that are more apt to be getting them. But your point is still good about like Black Love Resisting the Rest is just a very wonderful organization, and I'm sure there would be and are very supportive of what you're doing.
What can we do as nonprofit organizations and activist organizations in the community? What can we do to help support your lawsuit, what's and what you're trying to do?
I think one of the biggest things would be just reaching out to the mayor's office and asking them questions about this. Why did this go for so long without anything being done? Like, I just want to keep pushing this timeline that this happened May 2nd, right before this mass shooting, and nothing was done to this woman. How the things that she said were so direct and so like intentional. Like, my whole thing is like, what was your goal? Like, what were you trying to accomplish here by telling your colleagues or whoever you want, however she felt about us? What was your goal for telling us these things? Why? Because the only thing I can think of is to make us feel less human and to make us feel less than you. Why are you here? So one of the biggest issues would be, well, one of the biggest things that the community can help support is ask, why did this take so long? Why did it take us to have to sue them in order to fire or to suspend her? And then even going off what Kate was saying earlier, what's stopping someone from who doesn't look like us, who can afford a 30-day suspension and just to offend us or say with X, Y, and Z, and then now they want to be on a paid vacation for however long they choose to keep her on the payroll. And I will say another question is, oh, sorry. I was just going to say this, like, it's a lot of answers for us that I don't even know why. I was taken out of work by 3 medical doctors. One of the doctors was with the city hired the doctor, and she even took me out of work. I submitted all my paperwork because of this incident, and the commissioner denied it. Didn't give me no reason why, didn't tell me anything. So then when I asked the union, well, what if I come to work and have a stroke and die? Who's responsible? And the union told me no one. So why am I going back to this job? I don't matter.
Wow. Absolutely. And I think even speaking on like what Brandon said, historically, just looking at how cases like this has been handled, I believe if it was the other way around of us offending a white person, there would have been immediate action. We even look at the case recently in Memphis with Tyree. The officers that killed him faced immediate action. They were immediately terminated, immediately brought charges against. But you also look at cases like Trayvon Martin and George Floyd, and so much time had to go by and be passed and say, well, let's review and let's look and let's find a way out of charging these officers when we saw that they did something wrong on video. And it's kind of like the same thing currently. It's like we have all of this evidence. We were offended twice. We took the right steps. We followed procedures. And still, 7 months later, this lady still has her position. And now, almost a year later, she's on a paid vacation. So it's kind of like Brenda said, like, we don't matter. And it's just showing us by administration that they don't care.
So one of the things that came up before when you were on Jim Anderson's show, which I think people should go look at that under Conversations with Jim Anderson. But the idea of when people call, and you can call that regular 311 number for and ask for ask for you to be relieved of to be put on paid leave, paid medical leave, or just paid leave while this is being resolved. You're in a working environment. And so if people call 311, and then they could also ask for a call back. So then they will take your number and they will take everything down, and then they have to get back to you about what they're going to do about the issue every time they get a 311 call. Is that something that you would like to see people do?
Of
Absolutely.
course.
Absolutely.
Because actually, and going off of what Erica was saying about Captain being on a paid vacation, I actually had to turn in FMLA paperwork today. So starting tomorrow, I will be on an unpaid leave for 12 weeks because I no longer have time, personal time to use to take out of work, and only one person donated me days, which covered yesterday and today.
Well, that
So,
makes, go ahead.
So once my unpaid leave is up, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. That ends on May 17th.
So she has to go unpaid. why Amber Byers is getting paid her salary just to be out of this toxic work environment.
Yeah, because the department won't place me out of it.
Now, is there any department policies that you were able to use when filing these reports to your union to and to the different departments that was, like you said, in the right process? What are some of the department policies right now in dealing with discrimination, racial slurring, or in something in that context of being culturally sensitive? Or is there anything in policy?
I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure of an exact policy, but I will say we do have a sexual harassment training every year that they make all officers go through, if not twice a year. And they explain how, it's unacceptable. And, if you get complaints, you're fired, So I'm assuming, my guess would be, in order for a captain to face some sort of punishment, she would have to sexually harass somebody, but being racist is acceptable. I can't recall the last time, if I even ever have had any type of diversity or training in the department. And it's just like they pick and choose what they want to take seriously and who they want to discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing I want to just get out there before you get off is that the Carriel Horn Whistleblower Fund was created in something like, I want to say 2011 maybe.
Or the Whistleblower Fund now. Yeah,
Carriel Horn, or now the Western New York Peace Center Whistleblower Fund was created at the request of Carriel Horn, and that was for other officers, not for herself, although she did get something through that fund, as a special, because she, as you all are, our poster child of what the fund is for. It's when officers, through standing up for what's right, are getting financially penalized or suffering financially in any kind of way. That is what the fund is for. It had a big spurt after Martin Gugino got pushed. It had a little spurt, which allowed us to give her some money when she needed it, before her pension came through. And we are, glad and grateful that we're able to give you something. It's for police officers, but you all have suffered. And I know I wanted to say, Erica, you didn't even mention that you were also laid off, right?
I was fired.
Oh, fired.
Yes.
Okay.
So
She was talked out of resigning, and then they fired her.
Wow.
Yeah.
We also do have a gift for you too, and I have to say that, this contribution or donation to each of you definitely does not cover anything. We don't have, we're always,
anything is appreciated.
It's donations from the community, and basically, we just want to say that we support you. We are behind you 100%, and to help bring attention to your stories, to your story, and to this issue, on a larger scale. But we do encourage people to donate to this fund. It is community supported. And the more you give, the more that we can support officers and government workers that's working for the state, working for the county, working for the city, that and that's standing up and speaking out against racism and prejudice. So we do have that for you, and I just want to say I'm so sorry to hear. I'm just so sorry to hear that you're going through this, but we know that you're definitely not the only ones, and that it takes a lot of courage, to say something, to go through what you're going through, And, one of the biggest things I would encourage you to do as you go through this lawsuit is look at policy change, policy within the department. Because sometimes, I guess, Vicky and I will talk about this later, that, we can basically like kind of fight against a cloud, right? There's this unseen, we know it's there, but every time you punch at it, it's, you're going through you're going right through the cloud, right? It's nothing that really exists. It just hurt our feelings or made us feel uncomfortable. Well, it's nothing against, procedure. It's nothing against, the law, what we abide by. So it's her opinion. So, oh, well. But when
I have a bunch of those through these 16 years.
Exactly. So when you start to change the policy on paper, you have something a little bit more in stone to say, she violated this, and this. We don't have that. We're punching at clouds, right? And any situation, any systemic, situation. So let's put it on paper. Let's get it in black and white what we want to see. And this is, to the community as well, what we want to see happen. Just like the sexual harassment training. I know that took years to even be on paper. For training and policy. This is what sexual harassment is. This is what it looks like. And if you violate any of these things, this is what happens to you. Absolutely. It seems like there's nothing like that for racial, cultural, religious, type of sensitivity. So I would love for us to, I would love for the Peace Center to work on that, as well. To help to see that happen.
And speaking of opinions, we have turned to our union to see what they could do or how they could help us. And they essentially told us they can't do anything. And our union president told us that we're suing based off of our opinion anyway.
Well, all I can say is, it's a really, you have our full support. And as Deidra said, we really want to focus on what needs to happen here. What needs to happen. So one immediate thing, we hope that people will call 311 and ask for you to be put on unpaid leave while the situation is being resolved. Also, if people donate to the Western New York Peace Center Whistleblower Fund, we can give more to whistleblowers. Hopefully more will join, or come forth for this or in related ways, because this is so important what you're doing, and it's so courageous, because it's for all of us. It's for all of us. We need these changes, and so more to follow. We hope to have you on another video show before long, when you can stay longer, and when we can get further into the changes that need to be made of all kinds of policies, procedures, and also who's in charge of what. So I know, Erica, we were going to talk some more about what is the behavioral health unit, and why are they in charge of helping people's emotional and behavioral health when they can't do it with their own staff or their own department?
Right. Yeah,
absolutely. Yep, absolutely. That's important. That's an important question.
$4,000 amongst other questions, but you all really, so courageous, so truth and patience, and you just have, as Deidra said, so much support and gratitude from here. And
thank you so much.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. We need as much support as we could get from anywhere we can get it from.
We really appreciate you. We'll continue the conversation, and we'll continue it with you another time, hopefully. And in the meanwhile, thank you so much. Blessings. Take it easy.
No problem.
Take it easy on yourselves.
Thank you.
Body, mind, spirit.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Thank you. To be continued. To be continued.
Yeah.
And to be continued now, too.
Right now.
Yeah, right now,
Yeah.
you and me. Right.
Mhm.
Because we have about a half an hour left to still talk about some of the things that they have talked about. I know, Jim Anderson had them on the show, and now they've been getting some press finally for this situation. They were just on Channel 7, so people can look for those um, other discussions or times when they're telling exactly what happened.
And it would be good to say their names again. So if you are looking up their situation and want to see what Channel 7 had to say, uh, let's repeat their names and who's who again.
Sure.
You have
Brandon Hawkins. Brandon has been with the Buffalo Police Department for 16 years, I believe.
that's what he said. Yeah.
And so that's Brandon. And he told some stories about, he told about how Amber Buyer called him in later and sort of put him on the spot about some of the deaths that he had in his family. And I want to say back to the lack of sensitivity and awareness with the way it was handled just
Right.
is a testimony to why they should not be in charge of mental health issues. But anyway, so that's Brandon. Then there's KateLynn Bolden. KateLynn is mom. KateLynn has been really struggling, and she has told them that. And she was there in the initial incident. And that's KateLynn Bolden. And now she'll be on leave, but I think her financial issues will be are formidable. And then there's Erica Seymour, and Erica Seymour was actually fired during this whole process, as she is a mental health professional, and she does have other employment, but meanwhile she was actually fired off of this job. So they are the three plaintiffs in this lawsuit. There was another officer who was with them for a while who backed out, which is very understandable. This is some very, very difficult stuff to.
Very emotional. And that's one thing too. When you decide to stand against authority for what you believe is right, and there's no particular policy that's supports you, but you just know that it's correct. You get to a point, I would say, I know in my experiences, you get to a point where you say, it's worth it. It was such a big deal. You don't want to see nobody else get fired on account of you. Other people standing up for you or what have you, or for your situation. And you get ready to throw in the towel because you ask yourself, is it, it may be right, but is it worth it? And I would have to say that I was told, yes, it is. Because one, many a times when we're fighting, we don't always know what has gone before us, what has been fought before, and that your fight is just a battle in a larger war, against a racism, and prejudice, and so on, and how your battle is going to affect, those after you. So I want to say that, what they're doing, it is worth it, especially when there's nothing concrete to help people have something to stand on when it comes to systemic racism in the police and militarized departments, of these United States. So anyway, those are my thoughts as far as that.
Well, related to that, I mean, I feel like racism is in the air we breathe. We know that. Racism is in all of our institutions and it's in all of us. It's, in varying amounts and times and ways. We may think we've conquered it and then somehow something happens, some small thing. And then we see, those images and the history and the legacy, that's all a reality. And that's a reality on every side of it, affecting people in different ways, right? So historical trauma is very real. And plenty of people have historical trauma. Certainly Black people do. Certainly BIPOC people do. Many people do. And many people have a broken alert system. Do the officers have one? Sure they do. And to the idea that they think that there can be a claim that there's no racism in the police department is just a mark of how much there isn't either frankness or understanding. Is either one or both, because it is pervasive. It is too ingrained to be able to say, no, there's nothing like that. There's no vestiges of that. There's nothing like that. No, there is. And these are people who have a gun. These are people who are told that if in 2.5 seconds, you have to decide if somebody's going to try to kill you or not. Well, so these are people who are talk about hyper alert. So then when you have then the implicit bias, then the racism that is being denied is a potential death threat. Is a death threat.
Most definitely it definitely can become that. Most definitely.
So it is not to be trivialized or just passed over, just denied. So that is pure denial. To say there's no racism why is there no racism in the Buffalo Police Department when there's racism? There's racism in schools and in anywhere you care to look, in the gas station. It's just it's in the air we breathe. We know that. Or at least we know that if we've been paying attention.
Yeah, and are made aware. So I think that and this is by far no excuses, but it takes some time, I believe, for and of course when we're talking about racism, we usually see it Black and white, right? Because that's the majority, generally speaking, majority of we have white Black people, white people, Black people,
Right.
In the United States, and of course our Latinx, populations are also growing even beyond the African American population now. So we usually see it in that way, but we also have to look at racism as a power difference as opposed to prejudice,
Right.
and how so everyone can't be racist, but everyone can be prejudiced. Racism is usually you can use your power and authority that we have, or that a person has to exercise their prejudice. Whether it's the color, other skin, or cultural or ethnic, biases. So I think that, but many people are not aware. They may not be aware of the way they have grown up, their usual talk, their usual discussions. I'm just saying what my, with the Ambers, I'm just saying what my husband said in Jim Anderson's radio show. You're repeating what's happening in your kitchen, in your household, but not really recognizing how this conversation continues these thoughts and thought patterns, of racist, of a system, systematic, racism.
Yes.
So you become insensitive to it, and so, like I said, I'm not giving her any leadway or anything, but that therefore, training and a good amount of training, like they said, diversity training, sensitivity training, and not just race, culture,
Right.
ethnicity, you're dealing with, such a large population of, immigrant and refugee population in Buffalo. And, that's coming with its own stereotypes as well. So, therefore these trainings must be done. This has to be a part of policy. And I think that's where the Peace Center can help, can support is, policy change within the system. If we say it's systemic, then what do we do? We know it's a broken system. Eventually it really all has to go. But
Right.
What can we do to put in, a little bit more, fail safes to, to deal with, the innate oppression that can certainly happen through its policies or the lack thereof of policy. Sorry.
I'm just so glad you brought up about power too, and about the systems and the systemic nature, because it is borne out again also by the fact that the union did not support them.
No.
The union did not support them. What does that say? I mean,
they didn't have a leg to stand on. That's what it tells me. That they can't, if you don't think you can fight, you don't have any weapons. It's like, okay, this is a waste of our money. This is a losing battle. We can't fight this. So the union's supposed to help them save it, keep their jobs, right? Again, policy change.
Well, see, I read it a little differently, because to me, it's the honestly, the police union is supporting white supremacy, directly or indirectly, however they want to call it. But they're defending the status quo, so they're not going against the police department or Amber Buyer or the mayor's office or anything. No, they're not supporting their members, their Black members who have a legitimate complaint and a need for a safe working environment, but they are not supporting them. They are supporting the status quo. So to me, that is just a mark of back to the dysfunctionality of what's going on.
Right.
Back to what you said about the need for policies, procedures, and programs, and frank conversations, which is something that we have something to talk about too. We have some hope about getting some frank conversations going.
Yeah. Well, I think when we talk about frank conversations, everybody got to be ready.
Right. Sure.
Every person got to be ready, because usually, more than likely, you're gonna get frustrated. You're gonna be offended, and you're not gonna want to talk anymore.
Right.
You're gonna either shut down, or you're going to run, or you're gonna fight.
Fight, flight, freeze.
We said we want frank conversations. Huh? What did you say?
I said fight, flight, freeze.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Fight, flight, freeze.
So it's real, and it's real to hear. Just like, let's say, this Amber person, she was being frank about what she believed. Was it comfortable? No, not at all. Was it appropriate in that situation? No, not at all. Is it appropriate for her, for that particular unit dealing with with the health of the community? No, not at all. Even if she's like, she's dealing with these biases or, her thoughts on the matter, but these are truths, her truth, and maybe many other people's truths that, for Black people, we're like, we knew you believe this. See, this is what we're saying,
Right.
And, in one sense, in the other sense, it's like, I can't believe you said that. Yeah, right. I can believe you said, but why here, why now? And we're working.
But here's the other piece.
Can we have a safe space to, hear everything?
So the safe space, definitely, and that establishing trust. But so for trust, there
Oh,
needs
yeah.
to be some reciprocity. So
Yeah.
here's the thing I'd say actually, because when I heard what Amber said, as you said, she was speaking frankly. So in some way, you could even say, there was something, there's good and bad in that, right? Just like you said. But the big point to me is the things that she didn't say, because the part if she said all that, but then she also said, we know that the racism is wrong. We know that those prejudices, and we know that even though white officers may be feeling traumatized from their experience as police officers and in a black or other BIPOC neighborhoods, but that we also recognize the even greater trauma that you all have, and the work that we need to do to eradicate those fears and that racism, right?
Yeah,
Say
did she
that.
recognize that?
No,
No.
I know, and that's why I'm saying there. So right, you're right. So she.
Why would she
So
say
if
that? She's
well, if she did recognize it, I guess that's the big if, and that's why it needs to be in an arena where trust is being established. There's a feeling of safety, and people are being guided, by people with some experience in it. And I want to say, especially sometimes from outside of the community, so there aren't, preconceived notions of who the person is or what the relationships are, or anything like that. So, there's a lot of work to do, and it's not, like we said, it's not just the police department, and it's not just the Fear Inc. either. It's in all of our institutions and all of us to certain degrees. But and that's why I've said I said it. I'll say it now that I have racism in me. I know I do. I've had to see that. I've learned through seeing it just what the honesty that we need and the humility that we need about what we don't know or don't understand, or just being ready to learn. And
I think that's the key word you said was humility. That's what I was thinking too. And all that's said and done, humility is needed to, reevaluate, how we perceive people, how we deal with our so-called roles in the community, and paying attention to how that affects how we do our job. So I think it was they said if she just would have apologized,
yes,
and said, and I'm not saying apologize for her feelings. See, everybody has the right to how they feel, to their own experiences, and to and because of their experiences, some people may have some prejudices. I'm right or wrong, it's still their opinion. We all have that freedom of speech, right? Or thought,
right,
to an extent. But to recognize that, a sensitivity level of now you're talking to people who you're so-called afraid of or concerned about, or, you think are doing, these XYZ stereotypical things. You're talking to this group of people. Do you not think they're going to have a feeling about that that's how you see them? That's how you view you and your family, view, Black people, Black men, were you not expecting, what were you expecting? An acceptance like, yeah, that's just how we are, like, so I think it is a sensitivity and a humility and a compassion that has to be, especially as in her role as a person in a position of power, amongst
Right.
the other officers. You see, so you have all these frames, layers of framework that we have to understand it in. So it's no longer just, we're having cocktails and we just, talking about, oh, when I was growing up, this is how my family was racist. Oh, when I was growing up, this is how my family was prejudiced. I talk about that all the time about, in the Black community, when we have conversations, most of our first questions is, what color were they?
Right. Well, usually you can guess too from the context.
I mean, that's, growing up, oh,
Right,
such and such happened
right.
on the bus. Oh, were they Black or white? That's one of the first questions, and I never thought about it growing up, but because it was such because it, what do you call it, framed our reality so much going outside our doors, as far as race as an issue, that has become a part of our conversation, even when we, discuss our, our experiences in the world. That's the lens we look at. We look at a color, ethnic lens in this particular, case. So, and that's being honest.
And that actually, I think that is happening now more and more to white people. And that, and in every context, that the racial questions are just in there. They're because they're ingrained in there. So for you saw it from the beginning, from your beginning, right? You grew up with it, and for BIPOC people, they grew up with that was an issue. But for white people, we didn't grow up with it in the same kind of way, because especially with our segregated communities. But one thing I want to get back to too, when you were talking about there's the humility that is not a part of the police culture. No. I don't think it's like it couldn't be more of a contradiction in terms, and that the police and the impunity is such a big problem. And I really want to go back to, I'd love to have us do a show about what are the police doing heading up mental health calls. That to have that housed in the police department, this is just a testament. This is an actual tautological proof. It's true by definition, because this was so botched so badly, and now it's become this big thing when it could have been a small thing, because of the inability. The police department is not the place for people to be managing the mental health and behavioral health issues of their own people, what to speak of the rest of the community.
So what's the name of this unit again? What is it, Health? Do you know the name of the unit?
The name of the unit, it's the Behavioral Health Team.
Behavioral Health Team. Now, is that new in the last?
Yeah, that was created within the past, I want to say, year or two.
Okay, because I'm like, that sounds very new.
It is very new. And actually, we're getting low on time. I want to tell you that we're just a little bit. Wait a minute.
Well, I would love for us to look at that unit itself.
Yeah. Well, we still have a couple more minutes, but I just want to say,
go ahead.
There's work being done on it. The Daniel Prude law is part of that. There are other people in the community who've been working on it very hard. Free the People, and we're a member of Free the People. I think of Tanvier Peart. I think of the people in Rochester because of Daniel's law. But we had it with Willie Henley. We have had numerous examples. And I was actually part of a group of social workers that had a press conference about what a bad idea it was to put a mental health unit in the police department, because the police are in charge. When they did the bowler wrap thing, when they had their first bowler wrap incident, they thought it was a big success when they ended up with a half-naked woman barefoot in the snow for 3 hours and 10 officers who tackled her after the bowler wrap, and they counted that a success. The whole thing gets me pretty excited.
Wow.
How wrong it is. So there's more to talk about there.
Yes. Yes. So a few announcements. Join us for our Women's March 2023, Western New York Women's March 2023. Peace is worth it.
Yes.
Where we will uplift international women's rights. So that means United States. That means Iran. That means all every there's what do you call it, discord and protests all over the world for women to be looked at as fully human and to have fully human rights and civil rights as well. We are uplifting environmental sustainability and looking at looking at how these wars are affecting the environment and our communities and the sustainability of our communities. And we are uplifting peaceful negotiations in war-torn countries, such as Ukraine, and so on. So, and more and more, because we can't always address every single issue that's important to every single woman, but we do try to address a few each year, and bring voice to them and a platform for those issues to be addressed. So that's March 26th, Niagara Square at 1 p.m. Meet us there. And if you don't want to walk in the cold, we will be marching straight up Court Street to the Central Library. And if you don't want to march with us, it's okay. Meet us at the library at the Ring of Knowledge, where our program will begin officially, and we'll have a kid station on women as women's history, and we may even have some concessions to keep you warm. So meet us there March 26th at 1 p.m. Go ahead.
So people, and then about 1:30 for people if they just want to go straight to the library.
I would say about 2 o'clock, 2 to 3:30 is the program.
Oh, I was guessing more like 1:30 from when
Yeah,
we're
it's
starting.
starting time, but who does that?
We'll see. We'll see when we get there. When we get
Once we'll do a welcome at Niagara Square at 1 p.m. And let people know what
right.
we're doing, and then we start to march. So make sure you're there at the library about 1:30. That's safe, so you won't miss the program.
Sure.
And cheer us on as we come, up the hill there. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm so excited about that, and it's been, it's certainly a very powerful show, and there is so much going on. There's more other events, and they're all brewing and campaigning. Yes. So I'll just remind people about calling 311, ask them for a call back, and ask for unpaid leave for the two officers. That's Brandon Hawkins and KateLynn Bolden. Yes, and also, please donate to the Western New York Peace Center Whistleblower Fund so that we can
Ms. Betty Jean
we can respond back. We can get on Facebook and respond on the Facebook now that we're off the air. We're going off the air. And for those of you on WBNY, thank you for listening. Thank you, Facebook friends and other friends, YouTube people. Thank you so much, Deidra.
Thank you.
So this is Talking Peace, and together we've been talking peace in truth and love. Thanks so much.